Hi guys, Rhi here from mummyof4.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk with Rhi podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. So summer, more specifically the summer holidays, are fast approaching. At least they are here in the UK, where we get summer holidays around the sort of middle to end of July for 6 weeks. Now I know it's different in Scotland. I think they're a lot earlier, different in America. Shout out if you're watching on YouTube down in the comments when your summer holidays are, because I always find it fascinating how it differs and varies in various places around the world. Obviously, if you are listening in, hello, if I'm just in your ear pods or just listening, keeping you company on your walk around your day, not able to comment. Unfortunately, it would be good though, wouldn't it, if there was a way of commenting on actual podcasts and having a bit of a dialogue there. But you can always tag me over on Instagram and let me know there. Anyway, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can prepare for the summer holidays in order to make them as stress-free and enjoyable as possible. Now, I know there's a lot of pressure on us specifically as mums, a lot of stuff going around, you only get 18 summers, all this, got to make summer magical, got to make it amazing. And yeah, we want to make it the best it can be, but also we want to take the pressure off ourselves a little bit, because ultimately the more pressure we put on ourselves, the less enjoyable the whole thing's going to be. It's like if you've got a butterfly and you squish it too tight, you wreck it, don't you? Whereas if you just in more of the allowing, ease and flow kind of mentality, then it's you're far more able to enjoy the beauty of that butterfly than if you're just holding it too tight and squashing it. So let's kind of do some things to set up our summers for success while also taking the pressure off. And I kind of think that fail to plan, plan to fail comes in a little bit, and the more planning we can do, the more enjoyable the whole process is going to be. And I certainly find this more the case if you are, as my therapist refers to me, as queen of a neurospicy household. If you've got children who are on the spectrum, then you're probably going to have to do more planning than if you have neurotypical children. It's just kind of how it goes. If this is your first time here, I do have 4 children with autism. I have a husband who is undiagnosed, but I think we're coming to accept that he also has autism, and I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. So there's a lot going on, and let's get on with how I'm going to plan and prepare in order to hopefully make the summer fantastic. So the first thing is calendar. If you don't use a calendar already, then make sure that now is the time to start. Personally, I use a digital calendar. I use the one on my iPhone, and that syncs with all my devices. So it's on my Mac, it's on my iPad, but I've also got a family calendar with shared events that anyone in the family can see. So I can see when my husband's doing things, when I'm doing things. And the rule in our house is if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. So if my husband's like, oh, I got to be like, you didn't put it in the calendar. You didn't put it in the calendar. We've got to put it in the calendar. And then I know where I am. I can plan around things. And for the summer, if you can start by getting in the key dates where things are happening or are not happening, it's going to be a really, really good place to start. So one of the first things you want to get on your calendar would be the date that your children break up from school, the dates that they've got to go back to school, because obviously you don't want to be planning trips to arrive, midnight the night before they start back to school. You want to be spending some time getting them back into a little bit of routine for at least a night or two before they go back to school. You want to make sure that you've got any existing trips and commitments put into your calendar. And so this could be a holiday, this could be a weekend away, it could be a birthday party. But by looking at it all and having an overview of what is already booked in for the summer, you can see where the slots are available to fill, where there are big gaps, where things are looking a little chaotic, and you can start planning effectively to make the most of the summer. So the next thing I think about booking as early as possible after you've booked your trips and holidays and your big things would be organising play dates, because you may have a very busy summer lined up, but then lots of other friends that you might want to catch up with will also have things lined up. They'll have holidays scheduled in, they'll have work commitments, whatever it might be. So as early as possible, book in some play dates my ideal fun kind of play dates are the ones where, and I'm very, very blessed actually, that I've got some very close friends and all of our children get along. My children don't really have cousins, and I've always thought it was a shame. I grew up with cousins that were sort of similar age to me and I loved it. But I've got friends with children kind of the same age. It's like there'll be like one that's currently 10, one that's currently 9, one's currently 8, you know, that like my friends' kids are sort of like a year between my children. So with all in all, they're kind of all about a year apart when they get together. And it's so lovely because I can have a really lovely catch up with friends. They can have a really lovely catch up with friends. And it's perfect. So I'm going to try and book some of those in as early as possible, get some dates in the diary, get those, you know, in there before my calendar and everyone else's calendars, my friends' calendars fill up too. And I highly suggest you do the same. One thing it's a really good idea to do before the summer in order to prepare for it is sort the garden. Now, the weather's been pretty good here in the UK recently, so this is probably something you're doing anyway, but hopefully, and we're keeping our fingers crossed at this point, hopefully when the children are off school, they'll be able to spend lots of time in the garden. I mean, possibly at the moment, because of school and things, you haven't had that much time to spend in the garden, even though the weather's been nice, but things like getting out garden furniture, cleaning it up, seeing if any garden toys are broken, need fixing, making garden toys accessible for the children so they're easy to find. So we've got like a playhouse, sort of like the children call it a tree house. It's kind of like they climb up to it and there's a slide out of it, but underneath there's a giant cupboard with toys and things. So really what I need to do is pull all that out, chuck away anything that's yucky, old, broken, and just have that as only stuff they actually want to play with, and that way they're more likely actually to play with it. It's a good time to stock up on supplies as well. So this might be replacing some garden bits and pieces, some like garden toys, things like that. Stock up on art supplies. You know, if you see things on offer, like loads of reams of paper. My girls just love drawing. Art supplies like felt tip pens might be a good time to make sure that, you know, you've got backup felt tip pens when they run out, things like that. So you've got stuff to do on rainy days. Have they got books to read? So do you need to join a local library and pick things up? Do you need to order some from Amazon? Do you need some recommendations? Because if the children have got, you know, some reading to go and do if they're at that age. So Bella, my 9-year-old, has sort of within the last 12 months really caught the bug for reading. Zara is getting a lot more competent at reading, but hasn't really got the bug where she just wants to be a bookworm. She just wants to shut herself away and read, whereas Bella has. So I need to make sure that I've got plenty of books for her to devour. And something you're going to have to stock up on, hopefully, is sunscreen. Now, I like the one from Boots, the Soltime one, because it's 8 hour. I like the Protect and Swim one because also if they're getting wet, you know, paddling pool in the garden and things, they're still protected. But definitely stock up on that, especially if there are offers. Another really good thing to do to prepare for summer is to sort out your children's summer clothes. Now, hopefully, wherever you are in the world, then the weather is good enough. It has been here, at least lately, for the children to wear a bit of summer clothing lately. It's been lovely. But ultimately, it's only been for 2 days a week. So if they didn't have much in the way of summer clothing that fit them, I almost wouldn't notice in that 2 days a week because they'd be able to find enough for 2 days to fit them. That's fine. But if you think about it, in the summer, they go from just wearing non-uniform clothes 2 days a week to 7 days a week. So really, it is a good idea to have a look through your children's summer wardrobes. Does everything still fit them? Have you dug out their swimwear? So you might have one swimming costume on the go that just goes back in the swimming bag, but maybe if they're in paddling pools, or if you live near the beach, or if you've got like outdoor pools that you might be going to, you know, more summery activities, then you may need more than one set of swimwear. Does it all fit them from last year? Dig it all out and check. See what needs replacing, and then you can get on the case of ordering new of whatever you need, passing on, donating, recycling things that don't fit anymore. It's a really good idea to make a bucket list of things that your kids or you and your kids want to do together. And I'd highly suggest making a list of free things and a list of paid things that they want to do. And then maybe you can think about budgeting for how many paid things per week you're going to do versus how many free things. And that way, when you're trying to plan out the week, then you can look at, right, how many free things can we fit in, how many paid activities we want to do. I'd even go so far as to categorize them between indoor and outdoor activities. So if you can look ahead at the weather and be like, right, okay, the weather's a bit grim, so we're going to see if there are any indoor things we can do. And generally, the indoor things tend to be a bit more paid for. You're going to get more free stuff to do that's outdoor. So picnics in the park, all that kind of stuff is free. Get that on your bucket list with your children of ideas of things they want to do. And then it could be a fun thing you plan at the beginning of the week, plan at the beginning of the day, plan at the end of the day for the following day. But you've got a bank of ideas rather than, I just don't know what to do. So this is something I'm definitely going to do with my children, where we might think, what do we want to do? Where do we want to visit? Which people do we want to catch up with? And start having this list of stuff that we can refer to when it's like, okay, everyone's bored, we need to go and do a thing. What should we do? Which activity should we go and do? It's a good idea to set some personal goals as well as bucket list things for your children. What do you want to get done over the summer? So for me, I often set some like decluttering type goals. I did recently declutter in my office, so at least that's done. I probably need to go through William's room as like a bit of a decluttering mission this summer. And it's a good thing to do when the children are home, because, to be debated, when your children are very small and don't want to let go of anything, perhaps it's better to declutter when they're not there. But for me, when I work from home and I'm not going to be able to get as much done because I'm just not as productive when they're home and there's lots of noise and they need me, doing something like decluttering is easier for me to do than something like recording podcast episodes where I actually need quiet. So for me, maybe decluttering projects is something I might try and achieve during the summer. I do definitely need to do the back to school stock take. So that needs to go on my list of things I need to do this summer. And that's just, I do this in the summer rather than before the summer holidays, but we pull out all the uniform they've got. We see what fits, what doesn't fit. And then from there, we make a back to school shopping list rather than just making a back to school shopping list, because when I've done that in the past, I've ended up spending way more than I needed to, because I've bought, 5 new of everything and realised that they had all this stuff that still fit them, and it just felt wasteful and excessive, and we just didn't need to spend that money and have all that stuff in the house. So the back to school stock take is an absolute game changer. In fact, that's something I would get in your calendar for the beginning-ish of the summer. If, like me, you work from home, in order to prepare for summer, you might want to get ahead a little bit. So if you've got flexible hours, maybe you want to try and cram in a few more hours leading up to the summer holidays so that you don't have to do as many when the kids are off. If you are like me and you're totally self-employed, then for me, it's like batching content to make sure that I've got enough to get me, excuse me, that's my stomach rumbling, I'm very hungry. You may need to get ahead with work. So like I said, for me, that might be recording more videos ahead of time, because it's easier for me to edit with them home than it is for me to film when they're home, because noise. So things like that. Setting a budget is a good idea for the summer. We touched on this briefly. A budget perhaps for how many paid activities you want to do with the children. It might cost you more money to have the children home because they're snacking more. What is it with children and snacking when they're home? But, it can cost a fortune. But which brings me on to my next point, which is set up a snack system. So I've seen people do like tuck shop ideas where you've given the children a certain amount of money per day, and you can physically give them this money. You don't have to expect them to find the money or earn it. And then they can purchase, so say you give them £1 a day, and then you label up the different snacks as different amounts of money, and they can purchase those from the shop, and that teaches them about money and also about, when to budget, I suppose, teach them a bit about budgeting, but also thinking, right, well, I've got this much money, what do I actually want to choose, because it's not unlimited. It's just a really good exercise, especially when children are young and learning about money and change. It's like a maths exercise, but a really, really good system. For me, the children only snack at the table in the house. They only eat at the dining table. They don't eat all over the house, just because there would be so much mess. And also our dentist is always like, do they snack between meals? It's like, well, honestly, they mostly eat at the table, so they generally eat meals. And she said, good, because snacking is the worst thing. So it's better from a dentistry point of view, apparently, for children to eat at meal times or at set times rather than be constantly grazing through the day. It's better for their teeth. And for me, it's easier that the children all eat at the table, because the amount of crumbs my children make, it's like, did any of it go in your mouth? If it's all at the table, then at least that's just one place to clean the food mess. And also in the summer, they can kind of eat outside and picnic and things. But I do have a snack basket of, say, when it is snack time and they say, can they have a snack? They can go and get things from the snack basket and they can choose those things themselves. Have a little think about whether there are any crash courses you want your children to be going on. So for us, a lot of the activities stop through the summer. Things like dance and swimming stop the normal scheduled timetabled lessons, but there are crash courses available where you can take them every morning for a week or whatever. So if that's something you're interested in doing for your kids, then make sure you check those out because they book up quite early in advance. Something that I touched on in my meal planning system, but a really good idea for the summer, is to book regular grocery delivery slots. I tend to do this anyway year round, and towards the end of the month I book up all of the slots, and I have the same slot every week, so I don't have to think about when's it coming. I know on this date at this time my groceries are coming, and it just takes some of the thinking out of my day, which is what I need in my life, because as I'm now learning to understand my ADHD brain, it's hard to hold certain things in my brain. So for me, routine automates things. It takes away the having to think about things, which makes my life so much easier. But definitely, if you don't do this already, rather than just booking the next grocery delivery slot, thinking, oh, we're out of things. That is my stomach grumbling. Again, my goodness, I'm so hungry. But yeah, rather than having to book a grocery slot when you think, oh, we need food, and then you can't get a slot, and then you're going to have to go to the supermarket, which can be a right pain, especially if you've got the children with you, because taking the children to the supermarket costs, I'm sure, twice as much. I'm not sure that anyone's done a study on this, but maybe they should, because I don't know about you, taking my kids with me to the supermarket, it's like, Mum, can we have this? Mum, and we end up and they need snacks going around and all sorts. I spend so much more money. It saves so much money to just, even if you've got to pay for the grocery delivery slot, by the time you've factored in the time it takes, the fuel to drive there, and all the extra stuff you're going to chuck in the trolley because you've got your children with you, it's going to save you a fortune. So get those grocery delivery slots booked ahead of time. Have a think about setting screen time limits for your children. If you have Apple devices like iPads, you can set up your children as child devices to your parent device, and you can go into your phone and allocate how much screen time they're allowed on their devices for certain things. So for me, the children get up to, say, an hour of screen time, but they can have unlimited screen time on books, because some of the books, mostly the children read books in the hand, but some of the books they read on an iPad. Perhaps you can unlimit screen time on things like times tables games and reading eggs and mathletics and the kind of educational apps that the children use. It's like, okay, so you run out of screen time on games, you can still play these other educational games if you want to be kept entertained. But it's a really good way to monitor your child's screen time without having to nag them to get off things, because the devices automatically shut down after your predetermined amounts of time. Honestly, it's been a game changer. Now, this one may sound a little bit controversial, but if you've got children with autism, it might actually be a game changer. And that is keeping up a level of routine through the summer. I know when lockdown first hit and we did a couple of weeks of homeschool, and then it was half term, so we stopped and routine went total. Sorry, still hungry. My stomach really is making terrible noises. So as the routine gassed off, because we were taking a week off, but we weren't really going anywhere or doing anything, I noticed my children were just not as settled, and they really struggled without that structure and routine. So now we keep up a similar-ish routine through the summer. It's not as strict, it's not as rigid, but we keep up a sort of similar routine in that they have Monday to Friday, a set bedtime, which is earlier. There would obviously be exceptions if we're going somewhere or we're on holiday, but Monday to Friday, we tend to have a more sensible, earlier bedtime with later bedtimes on the weekends, a similar pattern that we would have during school time. I find this is less of a big transition into the summer, and more importantly, perhaps less of a shock when they go back to school. And for my children who are on the spectrum, who thrive on routine, this really, really helps. So discuss it with your children. And sometimes, I know they do this in school, where they make the rules with the children, and the children are far more likely to feel invested and engaged in those rules and comply with them ultimately, because they have chosen them themselves. So for things like routine, and in fact the next thing I've got written down is agree the summer rules with the children. So you can sit down and do this. Right, what's our routine going to be? How's it going to look? Right, do we agree this would be sensible? Okay, we'll make that part of the plan. What are the summer rules going to be? Be kind to each other, be helpful, this kind of just very basic things. Cleaning up after ourselves, all joining in, cleaning up after dinner. Just basic summer rules. If you can come up with some basic summer rules, then there can be fun rewards perhaps for complying with the rules. If we can all Be kind to one another, because this is a big challenge. If you've got siblings, they're not always wanting to be kind to each other. And sometimes you're like, wow, you would not treat your friends like this, would you? You would not do this with your friends. But wow, it's that sibling dynamic, isn't it? You know, you've got your children all home together. Perhaps that's going to be one of your biggest challenges, dealing with sibling squabbles. So if your kids can be kind to one another, then there can be all sorts of fun rewards, like maybe picking one of the activities off the paid for bucket list. Obviously, something really important to consider is when your work schedule and your childcare schedule will create issues, and solving those issues. So you need to sit down with your partner and anyone else that helps to take care of your children and be like, right, okay, when are you working? When am I working? Who's got the children when? Are we using paid for childcare? Are we using family childcare? Are we doing what I end up normally doing, which is just sort of managing it to myself and just getting up early and working, and then having to stockpile work in advance? But really, the earlier you can look at your childcare schedule, the easier it's going to be to manage it. Because in the UK, in people in employment, even if you use both of your childcare, your annual leave, and if you add them all together, most people struggle to cover all of the school holidays, even if you take it at separate times and never ever take a holiday together. I'm sure it's similar in other parts of the world too. I work for myself largely because we have very little family support, who certainly people that from a childcare point of view, you know. So obviously I've got my auntie, she's wonderful and she's lovely and we absolutely adore her. But from a childcare point of view, then it kind of, it's myself, it's my husband, and that's pretty much it. So in order to make it all work, this is why I ended up going self-employed, working for myself, and me sort of looking at how I can juggle the summer holidays looks a lot more like stockpiling work beforehand so I can work around the children. But if you've got an employed job where you have to be somewhere else, then you need to start thinking about booking holiday clubs or grandparents or whoever it is in set times, because you don't know when those holiday clubs are going to fill up. You don't know when those grandparents are going to book a holiday, and you need to know who's going to be taking care of your kids for the whole summer. So with all that being said, I hope you have a fabulous summer whenever your summer holidays start. I hope there's very little pressure and you can actually enjoy it, and you can achieve some lovely balance and have some lovely moments. And I hope for all of us that the sun shines. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Rhi. Rate and review over on the audio podcast. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Check out my Patreon for earlier content. And I shall see you guys soon.